Hello and welcome to Wake and Jake. We are joined by Foolish Bailey as we discuss some of the guys who have been game changers for their teams that maybe you aren't talking about. I'll let Bailey describe it better than that. And I will be talking some football. We just had the first football weekend. We will dive through it like we do here during football season. Bailey, I'm excited to kick off for you and let you tee it up because you used a phrase that has made me laugh twice in John Boy Media history, but I want you to tee up because this is your thought exercise.
Yeah, these players, the thing about these players that we're going to talk about, these unsung heroes, is they aren't just the stepfather, they are the father who stepped up.
Yeah.
And I think what I mean by that is these are players that on opening day or in spring training, the fans of these teams, the fans that root for these teams, weren't necessarily counting on these players' production to, save their season. And yet, in a way, they have, because that's kind of one of the keys to baseball, right? It's such a grind. It's a 162 game schedule. You're going to need to have guys come out of the woodwork to be a good team. It's just a fact. And I think, and a lot of times it's a depth piece because, one big thesis I have in general, Jake, is that you can account for how good a team is just by looking at how many plate appearances and innings pitched it gives to guys who are bad.
Okay.
Just avoid the bad player, avoid the sub replacement level player. And whenever you're getting that positive production or that above average production from unexpected places, good things will happen to your team. And so those are the players we're going to talk about today. It's not necessarily like, breakout stars where everyone was excited for them to some degree. It's like, oh boy, Tarek Skubal going to win the Cy Young Award this year. It's not quite about those guys. It's about kind of the tier below the Tarek Skubals or even the Jurickson Profars. Like these are the guys who didn't have any hype coming in the season and yet are doing big things for winning teams.
Is that a Brewers-esque theory? I don't know, not to dive too much into your theory, but it feels like every player they call up can play plus defense at their position.
Yes.
So if they don't hit, they still get some level of production.
I completely agree with that.
Okay.
Just as a whole.
Well, you should have seen Willie Calhoun in the outfield last year. Anyways, Bailey, I want you to start because you mentioned, well, I don't know if we just want to go down best teams to worst teams. We're keeping it teams above 500. That was a rule a line we drew in the sand, which did bring my Tigers back in the mix. And we split up AL and NL. Bailey, obviously a fan of the NL because the pitcher hits there. I have my attachments to the American League that I don't know if we want to start record at the top or if you have a guy that stands out the most, because the only other thing I will tee up is you mentioned Jurickson Profar. That was my question to Bailey. I was like, well, Jurickson Profar seems pretty on the nose for this exercise, but at this point, he's not like a deep cut anymore. He's been one of the best three outfielders in the National League for 5 months of the season. So that's all I will tee it up with.
Yeah, I think we can go in order of wins. I actually have mine in order of wins. So
Okay.
I'll kick things off with the John Boy Media favorite. I'm going Dodgers, and I'm going Miguel Rojas.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Bailey. My shortstop.
I'm doing it because I love the brand first and foremost. I love the Rose rotation. Miguel Rojas this year. Here are the numbers: 286 average, 325 on base, 407 slug. This is in 91 games. Keep in mind he's playing in Dodger Stadium. You've got a relatively low run environment this year, anyways, and especially in a stadium like that. So that's a 108 OPS plus. That is his highest OPS plus since 2020. That is the highest in a full season in his career. He is still, according to StatCast, one of the top defensive shortstops in the league, and that's kind of been his calling card. That's been his carrying tool for much of his career. Is Miguel Rojas plays great defense at shortstop. He's at +8 fielding runs according to StatCast, and really in the last, couple months or so, when Mookie Betts was out with the broken hand, Miguel Rojas and Gavin Lux have basically ended the Mookie Betts infield experiment. Like they have taken over those middle infield spots for the most part. Obviously, Edmonds getting in the mix there at shortstop as well when he's not playing center. But Miguel Rojas has started like 11 of the last 15 Dodgers games at shortstop. He's been above average hitter. He's been a great defender. And I think it's ultimately good for the team. I enjoy seeing Mookie in right field, to be honest with you. Like I think there was certainly novelty to him in the infield, but at the end of the day, it was fun to watch him try to move up the defensive spectrum and play the position that he thought was natural to him. But, you're depriving us of one of the greatest defensive corner outfielders of all time if he's playing the infield. This is a Roberto Clemente or Ichiro tier defensive right fielder. So I think with Miguel Rojas as sort of a bouncing force in that middle infield, hitting like he's hitting, fielding like he's fielding, my pick has got to be him for the Dodgers.
I love it. Obviously, we are in this house. We do support Miggy Rowe, and at the same time, I guess something I've talked about with you on this show, and I've struggled with, was part of me wanted Mookie to fail at short. And that feels like so dirty. That's so like not Jake energy.
No, me too, honestly, because I just think if he didn't fail, then it would kind of destroy whatever our preconceived notions are about how the defensive spectrum works, you know?
Right. And then I talked myself into it because, like, okay, at least you could hide behind Mookie Betts, who, you know, as I said, if he does do the transition to shortstop, he has an argument to be in, like, your all-time MLB starting nine. And again, Mookie Betts is probably going to be a somewhat inner circle Hall of Famer by the end of it if he stays at this pace for a couple more years. That, again, there's a cool side to it, but it's also like, shortstop matters. Shortstop matters, Little League to the pros, and that's Yankee fans' frustrations from previous years, passing on all those free agents, the IKF situation, that the Dodgers, who signed Shohei Ohtani for $2 million this year, came into the season with our guy Miggy Rowe at short, who had a 67 OPS plus the year before, a 71 OPS plus the year before that, an age 35 shortstop. The math stopped mathing a little bit. That I was like, Willy Adames is a Dodger. Like, how could he not be? He was the big shortstop name that was in his final year. The Brewers traded away Corbin Burns. Everything was lining up. Some inside birdies told me that they wanted Willy Adames, who's one of the most well-respected players in the league, to kind of big brother Jackson Chourio for the first year. Now, I do think if at the deadline the Brewers had gone the opposite direction, I do think Willy Adames would have been on the table. But it's funny that, you know, sometimes the inner workings of baseball, I just mentioned the Brewers, like every player, we can't have a losing player on both sides of the ball. That they were thinking like, hey, we have a young Latin star here. We want a current Latin star to put the arm around the shoulder and tutor him. All that to be said, we posted a clip where I said the Dodgers are going to trade for Willy Adames. And Miggy Rowe replied to that, and he said, "We're good," with a smiley face emoji.
Ooh.
So, yeah, I got.
He got you good. I mean, look, Willie's a great player, and it's no secret that they've been not just trying to trade for him within the last year, but 4 years, literally 4 years. They've been trying to trade for him, so he may still be a Dodger long term. We'll see, but I'm happy for Miggy Rowe. I'm happy he proved you a little bit wrong there.
God, he could end up having a 3-war season. Free agent, mark it down. Okay, Bailey. So I assume we'd do a little back and forth here where I would start at the top of the American League. And as I mentioned, just because I'm new to the exercise a little bit, luckily the American League as of today starts with my New York Yankees that I'm pretty familiar with. And for me, for this exercise, there was 3 names that came to the forefront. And I want you to help me select who truly gets it. Okay, a little bit of dating game here. Finally, we've been waiting to play that with you, me, and BBD. Candidate behind door number 1. Your left-handed hitting catcher who took over the cleanup spot and has kind of set the Yankees lineup. Mustache, you're right. Now it was supposed to be a platoon all year, lefty-righty, but Jose Trevino, the Platinum Glove winner, back. And what Austin Wells has done, you know, some are saying he's outplayed Adley Rutschman the past 3 months or whatever. You know, what Austin Wells has done, he's got a pretty good argument. He is looking like your AL runner-up for Rookie of the Year right now. The only thing I would throw into the narrative is Luis Gil, who is not expected to be in the rotation. He has his argument for the throne, has come back. Higher B WAR, Bailey. You know that's all I care about. 130 innings to the tune of a 3.24 ERA. That I think those two are the biggest option. While my secret third option, and depends how much you like the romance novel of what's going to be involved, a gentleman just took over the closer spot who was signed to a $1 million a year contract, essentially, to be a swingman for them, or that's what we thought. Luke Weaver, who's been incredible out of the Yankees bullpen. I do think I have a couple bullpen guys coming up, and I do think Luke Weaver is outgunned in this. That I think it does come down to Heel or Wells, and I'll let you finish my dating game.
Yeah, they're quintessential. For me, I gotta go Heel.
Okay.
I just think like they knew when they were starting the season, like Wells was like a pretty intriguing prospect. And that he had the potential to do this,
Yes.
if everything hit. I think Heel has been more of a surprise in that regard, just coming off, arm injury and just not really knowing if you have anything there at all. Is he a bullpen option or anything like that? And then to do what he's doing starting, I mean, I think both are great answers. And I think Weaver's also a really good answer too. But it just, of those three, I guess my pick would have to be Heel, even if, especially just with Cole opening the season on IL, like what that meant to have that guy in there. I think that for me is just what ultimately wins it.
I think you're right. And it's funny for Rookie of the Year and MVP for how analytically we get with giving awards now by, respecting WAR and the stats. And, you could, if you're a player who has a 10 WAR season, and, second place is 7 WAR, you're going to win the MVP. That's how it is now. It doesn't matter if you're Andre Dawson or whatever team you're on. If you have a losing record, you were the most valuable player. We have metrics that do value. Luis Gil, if the script of his season was flipped,
right,
the whole story would be different. Because at one point he had a 1.82 ERA in June. That if he had flipped his season and he was doing that for 12 starts, I think there would be Luis Gil Rookie of the Year talk, and there's kind of not. So I like the Luis Gil pick, and yeah, the Cole thing did put it over the edge for me. But what Austin Wells has done, especially batting, dude, he hits cleanup behind Soto and Judge. That's nuts. But I think everything, I guess the only counter to the counter would be that the Yankees have found a way to find pitching. Your Cody Poteets, guys like that, Luke Weaver himself. Don't laugh when I say Cody Poteet. That I think that Austin Wells argument could be a little stronger, but this was honestly, and it's funny that it's my Yanks, this was, of the rest of the AL teams, this was the only one that I had as a true kind of toss-up.
Yeah, and with my team, and we'll get to my team when we get to my team, but I had some minor difficulties as well, but then ultimately I was like, yeah, no, this is the guy.
So who's next in the National League?
Next in the National League is a team called the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yes.
I've got a weird one because this is a position player that only played 17 games for them, but he has such a soft spot for me in my heart. I'm going with Rafael Marchan. Rafael Marchan, organizational depth catcher. First of all, I just love this man, and I'll get to it when I get to it. But basically, Real Muto suffered a knee injury June 10th. He had surgery. He missed 32 games, a little over 5 weeks. And what happened is they called up Rafael Marchan to join Garrett Stubbs. And with all respect to Garrett Stubbs, you do get the sense in the Phillies locker room that he is primarily a vibes and defense guy. He's not necessarily there to hit. I think when they make the postseason, the over-under of postseason plate appearances for Garrett Stubbs this year is going to be about 0.5. But Rafael Marchan showed up and he hit. He played 17 games for the Phillies this year. 294 average, 345 on base, 549 slug, 3 home runs in those 17 games, which leads to the other thing that I love about Rafael Marchan, which is that Rafael Marchan, in his career in the minor leagues, has 9 home runs in 433 games. In the majors, he has 5 home runs in 40 games. You'll recall in 2020, he homered in the majors before he ever homered in the minors. So I love Rafael Marchan. I just really have a soft spot for him. And when Real Muto went down with that injury, I was saying, like, let Rafael Marchan cook. And when he got in there, he cooked. He might have only had a month to do his cooking, but he cooked nonetheless.
Can't believe you just Rafael Marchan me. And starting to understand where you came up with this exercise. An incredible example, Bailey. 17 games. Yeah. What he did in those 17 games, he balled out. And that's, you talk about having negatives in the lineup. He was the opposite of that.
He put together a slash line that's like, yep, Real Muto would do that for 17 games, you know?
I can't believe you just Rafael Marchan us. That's dirty work, Bailey.
It's a hero who's unsung.
I mean, he sure is, and I guess it makes sense because this is also a team of like superheroes. I mean, this is a team of you can name the starting lineup off the top of your head, even for like, not, I don't want to say baseball noobs, but up and down the lineup. I guess Cody Clemens feels snubbed right now, and I guess you don't respect baseball royalty a little bit.
No, I'm actually sick of the Nepo babies. I personally, if I were a GM, I wouldn't draft a single one of them. I would just give me the kid who didn't have a batting cage in his basement.
Shots fired at the Blue Jays. Weston Wilson feels spurned too.
Oh, Weston Wilson would be a good one.
It's okay.
Even Edmundo Sosa, even though he was kind of that guy for them last year already.
That's kind of his role.
Yes, that is. He's a great player too. I love that guy.
All right, let's jump back to the American League, which is my birds, and it's brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook. Football season is here, people, and DraftKings, it's the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Find a player, bet him to score a touchdown. Okay, I just described that pretty well for you. Bailey acts it out. And right now, if you bet $5 instantly, you get $250 in bonus bets, plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Wow. Okay. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code BAKERS. Yeah. Bet just $5 on any wager and get $250 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code BAKERS only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Bailey, my Orioles.
Ooh, your Orioles, yeah.
It's a little tricky. I could have Jordan Westberg'd you, but, I feel like he was a part of the formula, and that's kind of the thing. A lot of the guys for the Orioles are a part of their formula, except one man on the pitching staff.
I'm anticipating it. I'm ready for it. If you don't say his name, I'll be really upset.
Big Albert Suarez. People forget the brother of Robert Suarez.
Is that true?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
We were shocked. We found a Talkin baseball app. Shocking that the 34-year-old breakout brother, as his brother closes for the Padres. Like, get ready for that World Series matchup in your video game. Albert Suarez, I believe he is second in B-WAR of the Orioles pitchers, only behind Corbin Burns, the perennial Cy Young candidate that we were all on first. In his next start, he will pass Grayson Rodriguez for the second most innings in Baltimore, a 3.49 ERA. And yeah, man, I don't know what I was supposed to scout for the people when we do our team profile and projections about the guy who hasn't pitched in the big league since 2017 with your San Francisco Giants. What he has given to that team, and I think I'm going to work on a new stat that's past quality start. Like, I don't know, like badass start, that's a little lame. But, if you give 6 shutty, like, that should be appreciated on a higher level. There might even be some nerd stat out there that you're familiar with, Bailey. Or it's not, because this isn't nerdy at all. But just like dominant starts, DSs. And I feel like Albert Suarez, there were so many stat lines that I looked down this year, and it was 0 earned runs. And it's just like, okay, well, that means the Orioles are going to probably win that day. Albert Suarez, okay. There's a couple relief appearances in here, but 1 run or less. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And even if he gave them just that, never mind all the innings and everything else.
Yeah, great pick, quintessential pick. And you do raise a good point when it comes to projecting these seasons. At the end of the day, sometimes you got to shrug your shoulders and say, hey, if you'd have told me, Kyle Bradish was going to get hurt, but here comes Albert Suarez to the rescue, it's just hard to account for that in March.
It's impossible. So you know, the Orioles have that scouting, or they brought over that guy from the Astros, so maybe they're just better. Except Adley versus righties this year. Okay, salty Yankee guy coming out a little bit. It's September.
Oh, boy.
We love that. Bailey, Dodgers, Phillies. That means you're taking us to Milwaukee?
The Brew Crew.
Okay.
I've got a very Brewersy player here. It's going to be Tobias Myers.
Nice.
In the starting rotation.
We love
for the
Tobias
fellas.
Myers.
Well, here's the Tobias Myers story for those who need to catch up a little bit. He was traded by Tampa Bay to Cleveland for Junior Caminero. So this was one of those where, Tampa Bay kind of got the best of them. And here's his transaction log since then. July 2022, purchased by Giants from the Guardians. August 2022, selected off waivers by White Sox from Giants. September 2022, released by White Sox. November 2022, signed as free agent with Milwaukee Brewers. He pitched 2023 in their minor league system. And this year in the majors, he has a 2.93 ERA and 120 innings pitched, 22 games started. He's really been on fire last few months. Since June, he's made 16 starts. He has a 2.22 ERA. And I think what's fun, too, is it's not just Tobias Myers. Like, he's very much benefiting from what you alluded to earlier, which is the Brewers' way, which is the defense is going to play up and make their pitchers look really good, especially with regards to run prevention. And he's definitely being helped out by that. But it takes two to tango. Tobias Myers, has come from being basically a minor league free agent signing, cast away by a few other organizations, to being a starting pitcher for this great Brewers team that really needed a starting pitcher or two to emerge.
26 years old, a 2.93 in 120 innings. Insert that player on your favorite team, and you're like, this is my new favorite player, and I'm gonna watch him for a decade. And if he keeps it up, it's insane what the Brewers are able to do defensively with their shifts and just tapping into pitchers. And this is a case of it, man. And this is, you want to run an MLB team. Figure out everything the White Sox are doing wrong. Figure out everything Milwaukee's doing right, and you're gonna be okay. Because how could a player with any capability to have this kind of season be released at age 25 from the worst team in the league? And it's because one team is good at coaching.
Yeah, I mean, and to Myers' credit, like I and I don't have the numbers right in front of me right now, but he'd been on my radar for a while as a good minor league performer. So maybe it's just he just needed a chance, and he got the chance with Milwaukee, and he certainly made the most of it.
Feels like this game was also made for Brewers pitchers.
Yes. We could throw a Joe Ross in there for sure.
There could be a full family lineage of Brewers pitchers who stepped up through the years. A video idea. Okay. We've done my Yankees. We've done my Birds. Okay, so we'll keep it central, which means the Cleveland Guard Dogs. And my God. Could have been
first of all, the whole team is made up of these players. So.
Right? Like, honestly, David Fry kind of got eliminated for me because it just felt like maybe it's a Chris Rose effect that he was never sold on him. That I don't know if the Guardians were ever sold on him. I don't know. I could have went John Kensey Noel. Little Christmas.
He's kind of lost his starting job though these last few days, so I would kind of eliminate him from contention there.
That's where I was kind of eliminating guys offensively pretty easily. That I'm going to innings merchant for a team that has been hunting for major league starting pitcher innings with the best bullpen behind them. Ben Lively, who is a talking baseball celebrity of sorts. I always mix up the story. I think Trev always talks about him loving fishing. I think his family does charter fishing trips, and I don't know if there was jealousy in Trev's voice or whatever it was. But Ben Lively for the first place Guardians, who have been in first place throughout the year, there's only one other starting pitcher for them who has an ERA plus above 100. It's Tanner Bybee. and Ben Lively. Tanner Bybee was thought to be part of the young core of Guardians pitching this year between him, Logan Allen, McKenzie, Gavin Williams, a few other young men. Shane Bieber, sad. Ben Lively, second most innings pitched on the Cleveland Guardians to the tune of a 4.07 ERA. That with their bullpen and with the top half of their lineup at least, that is all they needed this year. Ben Lively, for those who aren't familiar, he had another gap. So I feel like this is a little bit, I don't want to be copying and pasting Albert Suarez. He didn't pitch in the major leagues since 2019 until last year with the Cincinnati Reds. 88 innings pitched, a 5.38 ERA with Cincinnati. He comes over to Cleveland, and he has been a stabilizing force in their rotation. That I don't know, with Kansas City and Minnesota having been lurking all year, what would have looked like without Ben Lively?
Yeah, it's a good pick. I honestly thought you were going to go the David Fry direction.
Felt too easy. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm pulling up the David Fry numbers right now. He has a 632 OPS since June, so it really was just kind of 2 awesome months and then some not so awesome months. Also appreciated the John Kinsey shout out as well. I will say I do enjoy calling whenever he hits a home run. I enjoy calling that a jonk bonk.
Okay.
So
we can mix that
there's
in.
some vocab for you next time he homers. That's a jonk bonk.
Add that to the pitch mix. I can do that.
Yeah. But yes, otherwise, I don't know. It's not the direction I thought you were going, but I think it's the right call. I think just when you look at the position of that rotation, behind Tanner Bybee, my guy, they have needed stability, and Ben Lively has absolutely provided that for them.
Yeah, I mean, their pitching staff, 24th in ERA, 23rd in WHIP, or starting pitching, 24th in ERA, 23rd in WHIP, 30th in homers per 9 allowed. And Ben Lively has easily been their second best starting pitcher. Although your Matt Boyd train has left the station yet again, Bailey.
It never ends. Yeah. I mean, do you remember, the streets won't forget like early 2019 Matt Boyd, on the Tigers. The streets will never forget that.
Him and Alex Cobb. I cannot wait to see how the story ends for this Guardians team. It's either going to be beautifully like one of the well-remembered teams of Cleveland, or like, wait, we started Boyd, Cobb, and Lively in a playoff series?
Yeah. Well, Cobb's my guy. Remember, I shouted him out on here at the trade deadline episode. I was like, this is something, even though people think it's nothing. Yeah,
credit to you. We all just saw an old man get traded. You saw something else. So, okay, I know the standings pretty well. That means San Diego. So we're getting our non-Profar example.
We're getting our non-Profar example, and this was a tough one for me. I went a direction in this one. It's kind of like your Luis Hill pick, which in the sense is that this is a guy that really sort of acted as a ballast for the team in the first half, and even if in the second half it's not like quite the narrative you would want to spin for him. You still got to respect the total overall production. My pick for the Padres is Jeremiah Estrada.
Okay.
Coming out of the bullpen. I'm a big Jeremiah Estrada fan. He's always had the nasty stuff. Great minor league numbers. Lots of strikeouts in the minors. Had this great, I want to say it was probably 2022 with the Cubs in the minors. He ended up waived and DFA'd by them after he had a disastrous 2023 at the big league level. He walked over 20% of the batters he faced at the big league level with the Cubs in 2023. Padres grabbed him off waivers. Smart move. So far this year, in 53 innings pitched, he has 85 strikeouts. He has a 3.19 ERA. He has an MLB record, you'll recall, 13 consecutive strikeouts, with 13 batters faced in May. That is an MLB record. And, the Padres bullpen coming into this season was seen as a pretty huge question mark. Even Robert Suarez, who already said, didn't have a great 2023 by his standards. And so Jeremiah Estrada, that is, surprised as sort of a high leverage option early in the season. And now they've been able to reinforce that bullpen post-trade deadline. Tanner Scott, Brian Hoeing, Jason Adam, all those guys are killing it that they acquired at the trade deadline. All those guys have been brilliant for them. but I think Estrada really held it down for them early. So I'm going to go with Estrada here, even though I think there are some good position player options, most notably David Peralta and Donovan Solano, Donnie Barrels.
I love me some Donnie Barrels and the freight train David Peralta. Estrada's a great pick. He was dominant. He was dominant for a while.
Yes.
And I loved your use of the word ballast.
Ooh, yeah.
That an impactful word when I used to work in the electrical supply and distribution industry, as the ballast lights the light. That's a little inside info for people to try to forget. Yeah, I was roped in. I don't watch a ton of MLB Network, but one night the Yankees were off and Jeremiah Estrada was on set because he had just set his streak. And I was getting pretty mad at how old the guys were being, because Jeremiah Estrada was like, "Oh man, I learned this guy's pitch mix from MLB The Show," and they were like, "Whoa!"
They couldn't believe it.
So you're Jeremiah Estrada, the reliever who just got 13 consecutive outs. You learned this guy's pitch mix from playing MLB The Show. I don't. It's just like, guys, what are? Let's tighten it up a little bit. Dude, how are people going to score on the Padres come October, huh?
Yeah, they they only need like probably 4 innings from their starter, and then it's just like, here comes just the conga line of relievers out of the bullpen. I mean, the way some of these guys are pitching. I mean, I've been in on the Padres for most of the year. I think they have what it takes to seriously make a run. I'd love to see them do it.
Man, they if they get to a 7-game format, I don't know. I don't know. Great pick. They had a lot of options. They were a team with a ton of options this year. Which reminds me of the Minnesota Twins, who are not at yet because they got jumped by the Royals this weekend, literally and figuratively. And the Royals, for this thought exercise, I could have pointed to like 3 guys in their rotation, if not 4, that I think I found the perfect person for this exercise. Because again, with the Royals, it's the top of the lineup, right? Like that top of the lineup, so good. Bobby Witt's an MVP. Sal's a statue guy. The 4 guys in the rotation, I could tell you Michael Wacha's story, and we could clap and be delightful. Not enough people are talking about Freddy Fermin. Not enough people. He has played in 99 games this season, 331 plate appearances, hitting .290, .339 with a .735 OPS, a .106 OPS plus as a catcher, and sneaking up on 3 WAR, by the way, 2.8 this season. And the other part of this is, if Freddy Fermin can catch these games at a plus level, that allows Big Sal to DH or play first base, which keeps him in the lineup. So, yeah, there's going to be, if Freddy Fermin gets to the finish line strong, which his numbers are similar to last year, which is pretty funny. Freddy Fermin, kind of a good baseball player, that we are going to end up, there's going to be a nice way to cut up, like, the catcher's performance this year, and Freddy Fermin will be on the list as, like, catchers with a 105, 110 OPS plus that played 100 games. There won't be a lot of names on that list, and Freddy Fermin will be on there. And the Salvi booster to it all made him a layup for me.
Yeah, just keeping Salvi fresh has a ton of value in its own, right? And I really observed what he was doing last year, and I was like, okay, they've got something going here with Freddy Fermin. And I'll also point out, they had been kind of trying to find someone to do this role for Salvi for a while. Like MJ Melendez, when he came up, right, they were hoped that he could be that guy. And, he ended up having to move to the outfield. So I think it's an awesome pick. It's a little bit upsetting how similar his name is to Freddie Freeman. It's just a little bit upsetting to me. And I think about some of those things a lot. Do you ever think about how Sandy Koufax and Sandy Alcantara have the same name?
No.
Yeah. Like a Jewish American kid, and then born in like when Sandy Koufax had been born like the 40s,
Yes.
Versus like Dominican guy born in the 90s.
The things
Sandy Koufax, born 1935.
The things
we 35, get 30s. There you go.
The things we get comfortable with. Vladimir, whether you're talking his daddy,
that's crazy.
Or his son.
That is a Russian tyrant. That is not. That is not a Canadian Dominican slugger.
And Jimmy has deep dove on some of that stuff in the past. Obviously, the influences on some of the different islands. Pretty wild to think about. So, yes, I thought you meant full name. Because, like, Freddy Fermin, Freddie Freeman, when you were saying Koufax and Alcantara, I was kind of like, maybe something's lost in translation.
They're both named Sandy. That's they're both great. They're both Cy Young winners. That's crazy.
I always, Freddie Fermin, there was a Felix Fermin who is tied into, he did something in a Yankees rivalry game, or he like talked trash to someone and like the young Yankees dunked on him. I forget what it was. I'll see if I can look it up. No one cares. Kicking back to you, I think we're at America's team, the Snakes.
We are. And of course, they are Jake Snakes.
Yes.
Jake McCarthy, to be specific.
Yes. He's been awesome.
Because I'll admit it. I'm going to admit it right now. And this is a hard thing for me to admit. I was a Jake McCarthy hater.
Wow.
I was a Jake McCarthy doubter.
Wow.
I thought he basically lucked his way into a strong rookie season in 2022. Here's a guy who doesn't hit the ball hard. Here's a guy who at that time didn't really have great plate discipline, at least in terms of the strikeout and the walk ratios. I was like, this guy's just fast, and he BABIP'd for a few games. And, he got down ballot rookie of the year votes, but he's not that good of a player. And then in 2023, he was bad because he was a primary corner outfielder who didn't really hit all that well. Didn't play in the playoffs, you'll recall, not part of that World Series run. He actually strained his oblique right before that wild card series against the Brewers, and I don't think ever made it back onto the playoff roster. And so, coming into this year, pretty much no expectations for him, for at least me personally. I think maybe the Snakes faithful might have had a little bit more hope for Jake McCarthy this year. He's been a well above average hitter. He has a 296 average, a 364 on base, 429 slug, and 125 games. So he's basically been an everyday player for them full time. 3 F4 on the season. Hit a 22% strikeout rate in his career coming into this year. This year it's 17%. And what I also like a lot is he's doing this while patrolling center field more than ever. Primarily a corner outfielder early in his career. This year he's made some starts in center, and he's at +4 outs above average according to StatCast at center. So he's using that speed to create some range there in the outfield. So I think maybe Snakes fans might disagree with me. They might have some other names they would throw out there just because Jake McCarthy has been part of the plans for a while now. But for me personally, like, I'm surprised by the output this year, and I think he's been a big difference maker for them.
I think it's a great pick. The Snakes do have some options, and wow, if you like OPS plus, go look at the Diamondbacks baseball reference page. We got
I think they still lead the league in runs scored.
We've got a lineup and a half that has been over it. Your guy Pavin Smith with the 3-homer effort, and I mean, put Adrian Del Castillo in that Rafael Marchan bucket if you'd like to.
For sure.
I do think Jake McCarthy is the great pick because for a couple years now, the conversation was, I guess Justin Martinez could have had a conversation, but the conversation for a couple years now is like, which D-backs outfielder are they going to trade? Especially, Yankees have been looking for young outfielders. The Blue Jays, they ended up making the Varsho trade a couple years back, but I don't know. It was just kind of like, which team is going to pluck one of these guys and then play baseball roulette? And Alec Thomas seemingly won over the crowd with a big postseason and the ability to track down balls in center field at an incredible level, that McCarthy kind of felt like the odd man out. They re-signed Lourdes Gurriel. Corbin Carroll's a superstar. Alec Thomas copies his swing. Like, we've got everything figured out. And here comes Jake McCarthy with a full season, essentially, that's going to go toe-to-toe with some of the best outfielders in the National League this year.
Yeah.
Electric speed, 21 swipes. And, yeah, enough pop to not just be a slappy speed guy. We are friends on Instagram.
Ooh.
mostly just over having the same first name. So, what a world sometimes. What a world. Okay, following up on Felix Fermin, the Yankee tie-in. Felix Fermin was almost traded for Mariano Rivera right before the '96 season. So you wanna play a nice sliding doors game of what could have. Felix Fermin and head of Jeter, Mariano out.
It's like, wasn't Judge almost a Brave or something like that?
Yeah, that was a early GM Files episode.
Yeah, they agreed to
got
Judge
it.
Gary
Jason
and something
Hayward,
else for
I think,
Hayward
was coming in. I'm sure there's tons of baseball stories like that. I said, Bailey, I think I have 2 teams left if I'm counting right. I have the Minnesota Twins. I have the Red Sox as well. Sorry, Sox. Maybe we'll be a little tighter as we've gotten down the list. Freddy Fermin. I will do the Twins, and this was a tricky team, especially just with the phrase "the father who stepped up." It made me wanted to lean into Carlos Santana so much just for how stable he's been this year. Yet he's been stable his whole career, and he was part of the plan that. Although, the Carlos Santana Gold Glove train has left the station and how good he has been. I don't think he was the pick for me. The Minnesota Moose, Matt Wallner, is throwing a Hail Mary out there with his OPS in the 9s, but he's only played 61 games. That it ended up giving the nod for me to Jose Miranda, who in 113 games, which is going to be the 3rd most games played. Willie Castro had an argument too. Flexibility, what he provides, I get it. Jose Miranda, for me, fell into he was kind of out. Royce Lewis was going to take over 3rd. Carlos Correa was at short. Eddie Julien was going to lock down the right side with Carlos Santana. That Jose Miranda, who had a very strong rookie year, he had a brutal follow-up sophomore year. 40 games, a .211 batting average, a .566 OPS. He gets the call because of injuries, and he balls out. And like I said, an .803 OPS on the year this year. It's funny you have Jeremiah Estrada, who had his getting batters out streak, that I had Jose Miranda, who, what was it, 11 straight at bats with a hit or something? I
believe that was it.
He was setting his own records. So I don't know. I know if you see this guy's rookie year, you probably didn't think it was Jover for him after last year, but that Twins infield was pretty locked up supposedly coming into the season. Jose Miranda got a shot, and he's been one of their best players.
Great pick. Just because you did this to me with Albert Suarez, I will say, Jose Miranda, cousin of Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yes, thank you.
Just for completionist's sake, this is the first one. I'm not a Jose Miranda hater by any means. This is the first one where I think we may have a little bit of a disagreement, because my pick would actually probably be, as far as the pitching staff goes, Woods Richardson. Woods Richardson has been just so key for them, and I think it's kind of the Ben Lively argument, because when they came into this season, we knew, okay, Lopez, Ober, and Ryan are good, but there's so many questions about the back half of the rotation. I think we've seen, like Louis Varlin failed. Zebby Matthews is up there now. Who am I missing here? David Festa, also part of there. But I think it's just there's arguments to be made, I think, on the back end of the starting rotation for the Twins.
I hate when we fight. SWR. I feel like we need a nickname for him. How good Bailey Ober has been. There was an SWR argument for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And the Twins after the Yankees, ironically enough, because I skipped over it quickly, but Willie Castro has like Ryan Jeffers. Like they had a crop on this team that you could have picked 5 guys. Where, it was no KC Royals and Freddy Fermin, you know what I'm saying? So let's see. That leaves me Tigers and Red Sox. Where are you at, Bailey?
Where am I at? I've still got 4 teams. I've got Mets, Braves, Cubs, Cards.
Why don't you do a twofer?
Yeah, I'll do a twofer. Let's go Mets Braves just because they're
Sure.
basically
Perfect.
tied in the standings and fighting for that third wild card spot. Mets, I've got Mark Vientos on Mets.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of these guys like Jose Iglesias, David Peterson, Reed Garrett. These are kind of obvious guys.
Yeah.
I got to go with Vientos here because even though there were expectations coming into the season, like they had two young third basemen they've been trying to integrate into what they do for a couple years now. It's him and Brett Beatty. Vientos he's just crushing it right now. There's really no way around it. You look at someone like Brett Beatty, 607 OPS and 169 career games. Like he hasn't caught on. Mark Vientos has caught on. In fact, he's caught fire. 284 average, 340 on base, 553 slug, a 151 OPS plus. He's hit 24 home runs in only 90 games this year and has been on a rate basis the best hitter on the team, period. So even if maybe the expectation, like they were, Jose Iglesias was not necessarily on the Mets radar. Reed Garrett wasn't necessarily on the Mets fans' radar when this season got started. I understand that they have done big things for them, but for me, it's just got to be Mark Vientos, just the way he has hit and just the way they needed at least one of Beatty or Vientos to have like a true breakout to be in the running for this thing, and it has happened in the form of Vientos.
He's been incredible. He's on a, per 162, he's on like a 40 homer pace, which is just insane. Yeah, another team with options. The Jose Iglesias would have been sexy, but that's fine.
And then I'll do my Braves as a follow-up. And I will say they haven't had a lot of these guys, and they usually do. They usually do have, guys who come along and bail them out. The exception for me in this case is going to be Spencer Schwellenbach. I'm a big Spencer Schwellenbach fan. In 17 games started, he has a 3.78 ERA, but honestly, like the peripherals and the recent performance are even more encouraging than that. Like he's a very, very talented young pitcher. In the second half, he has a 31% strikeout rate and a 4% walk rate. Like that's crazy. That's Skeensy in terms of just the strikeout and the walk rate. Interesting story for him. Drafted in 2021 out of Nebraska. When the Braves drafted him, they knew he needed TJ, I think. He also had, COVID short in 2020. He'd been a two-way player in college, like a reliever plus shortstop. And so by the time he makes the majors, he had thrown basically 31 innings in college and 110 innings in the minors. So this was he's not an experienced pitcher, by any means. And so the fact that he's doing this, I mean, he's thrown 140 innings since high school, like that's crazy to think about. And yet here he goes, and he's really, I mean, for the Braves that coming in the season, there are questions about the 5 spot in the rotation. Like Reynaldo Lopez opened the season in the 5 spot. He's been great. Strider got hurt, so then there were new questions about the 5 spot, and it's been Schwellenbach who's really completed the rotation. And I would, I don't know if the Braves will make the playoffs for sure. I would like to see him start a playoff game. That's how much I love this guy. I'd rather see him start than Morton or someone like that. I'd rather see Morton come out of the pen if we're talking playoff rotation. And the other thing about Schwellenbach that's so funny to me is because again he's very inexperienced as a pitcher in general, yet. How many different pitches do you think Spencer Schwellenbach throws, Jake? I'm going to pose this question to you. Just knowing what you know.
The way you phrased it, I will guess 9.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 6. He's got 6 legitimate ones that he's throwing like more than, 7-8% of the time. And that's crazy to me too, that he has that pitch mix at that age with that level of experience. Because that's something that you generally... it's like a Chris Bassett thing, right? You pick up one pitch, every here and there, and then all of a sudden you've got the full arsenal. Like he comes up, he's got the full arsenal. So for me, it's kind of an obvious answer here, but it's Schwellenbach for the Braves.
I like it. I remember there was, there's a lot of way to chop up numbers in baseball, and there was one Braves day early this summer that it was like, the Braves, quote unquote, 5th starters this year. It was like guys not Fried, Lopez, Sale, Morton. I think it was before the Schwellenbach train really left the station, and it was like the Braves are like, I'm making up the stat, but the Braves are 4-12 on those games. And it was like, yeah, if they had a 5th starter, the Braves could be competing with Philly, but they were not. And I don't know, I'm interested to hear you give Schwelly the ball over Charlie Morton. That has to hurt my old soul just a little bit.
Yeah, and I was, someone posed the hypothetical to me, so that's why I bring it up. But I mean, I will point out Morton has the coming out of the bullpen experience, so that's Astros swingman in the playoffs. So I could see it. I don't know if they'd go that direction. I mean, first of all, they got to make the playoffs, and they can't. I mean, they can't score any runs, Jake. I don't know if you've been watching them. They literally can't score runs.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy what a baseball season can do to a team. Speaking of score runs, actually, I might have a guy that pairs with Spencer Schwellenbach pretty deliciously. My Detroit Tigers, scrapping towards the finish line, putting themselves in position with the young energy of all these strong, handsome lads. Honestly, not a ton of guys who screamed at the page. Matt Vierling has given them yeoman's work throughout the season, and he's a Trev guy. That I'm jumping to the bullpen, and it is Tyler Holton that I teased early on. Tyler Holton last year was kind of like, hey, the Tigers have this lefty that's throwing a ton of innings, that's got a crazy low ERA. And it was just like, okay, nice, Tigers. Cool. And it sounded like people almost weren't excited. Like, here comes regression season for Tyler Holton. Last year, 85.1 innings pitched in 59 appearances. He had a 2.11 ERA. This year, in 82.2 innings, 58 games, excuse me. Same thing, Jake. A 2.29 ERA. So basically, he's run back almost the exact same stats. And Bailey, I'm a pitch mix truther as well. And I'm a UCL truther that I was told in one article that the UCL doesn't fully develop until you're 27, that I've developed an opinion that we're going to see more bullpen guys become starters in the Seth Lugo, Jordan Hicks type mold. And Tyler Holton is my number one next candidate because he currently throws 5 pitches. Cutter, sinker, change, sweeper, fastball, four seam. And he basically throws 3 to lefties. He throws his sinker, sweeper, and four-seamer. To righties, he throws cutter, changeup, four-seamer, couple curves. That seeing that, I don't know. My analytics front office would circle this guy and say, like, hey, if we could get him for a reliever's price tag, we can plug him in a rotation, or you might see him in the rotation for the Tigers next year.
It's a great pick. It's a quintessential pick. I've run the numbers here. 7th best ERA since 2023 among relievers with at least 100 innings pitched out of the bullpen. He has basically the same ERA as Josh Hader the last 2 years, with the bonus of 35 more innings pitched. Like, that's kind of crazy to think about. And I'll also shout out Jason Foley as well, who took over the closer spot from Alex Lang very early in the season, because he just kind of showed up throwing like 102, and everyone was like, "Oh, I think you're the closer now."
I guess this guy will just close.
Yeah.
Tyler Holton, 3rd in B-WAR on your Detroit Tigers, who are 73-71, chasing a playoff spot.
It's pretty darn good.
Pretty insane. You know what, Bailey? Let me close the loop pretty quick, because the Red Sox weren't, my Yankee bias probably kicking in. They had options like a lot of teams, and I feel like Willie Abreu has been talked about a lot, and that could kind of be a layup. Although he had a nice little cup of tea last year, just everyone else wasn't bought in. I think I'm gonna stamp. I mean, their whole pitching staff was good and is fading. I think I'm going to stamp Connor Wong.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, Connor Wong coming into this season, he had a career OPS plus of 80, 232, 288. I mean, basically he was, if we're being honest, he was an anecdote of the Mookie Betts trade. And Connor Wong this year has just hit 286, 338, a 774 OPS, 110 games. That I think for what his expectations were behind the dish this year, I think for this exercise, he was the guy. Like, if Wiley Abreu had a good follow-up year, I think people would have been like, yeah, okay, I could see that. Sure, good young ball player. I think Connor Wong, people kind of thought the book was written, and he wrote back.
Oh,
yeah.
Geno Smith style. Yeah, I'll do my last couple as well. Great pick, by the way. Great pick. That's probably who I would have gone with in the end. I got Cubs Cardinals. Just again, they have winning records. Cubs, it's surprising, but I'm gonna go with Miguel Amaya.
Okay.
Not the greatest overall season stats on the year, but they opened the season with Yan Gomes as catcher. He was released in late June, and since July, Amaya has a 800 OPS or above 800 OPS, 40 games. Christian Bethancourt, who they also signed after being released from the Marlins midseason, one dotting in 15 games. So they're getting some offensive production at catcher that they haven't gotten early in the year, and that's why they kind of are, still buzzing around the periphery of the wild card race. And then Cardinals, to wrap it up, Cardinals, I'm going Alec Burleson, big Alec Burleson, 21 homers in 134 games. There's been second highest OPS on the team as well, behind Contreras. Look, it's been covered to death, like some of these DH and corner outfield types, like they released Juan Yepes, and now he's a national. They traded Tyler O'Neill and Richie Palacios, and they traded Dylan Carlson at the deadline. They haven't been able to establish Jordan Walker, blah, blah, blah. But here's, big Alec Burleson, at least holding it down at DH and left field as well. And he is, they're lacking sort of in Cardinals-y type feeling players. But of the players they have this year, he feels the most Cardinals-y to me.
Yeah, I was going to throw a Cardinals AI generator I was just going to call him Brendan Donovan.
Sure.
Alec Burleson, lefty, beard. It's funny. One of the early ESPN Sunday Night Baseballs, like he was the mic'd up player. And that was before I knew, there's a lot of players don't want to do it. These guys do get paid like $10,000 just for wearing a mic for a game. So, if you're a younger player, that's kind of a no-brainer. Hearing Alec Burleson in the outfield kind of talking, I was like, what is this? But he has been very good for them this year. I think he's hit, I know he was hitting second for them a lot, which, with a lot of the guys they had on the roster coming into the season, I don't think that was what they expected the game plan to be. So for him to be their breakout, second almost every game. Proud of myself for knowing something like that. That was a good pick. Give Mason Wynn the love he deserves. No, everyone knows in our circle, and you've never believed in him.
No, it's true. I didn't, but I'm loving it now. I thought long-term, yes, but short-term, no.
That OPS plus is dropping. Bailey, that was a fun one, man. I think the baseball people in our life will enjoy that. As joked about before this, I do have to go to a meeting, and I'm going to sprint to the bathroom before that meeting, so win-win. Anything the people need to know about Foolish Bailey's content?
Foolish Bailey's content, I'm back to sort of the usual Foolish Bailey content. I got lost in the OTP sauce, so, if you want to come to see a variety of content, that's on Foolish Bailey. Foolish Baseball, I'm just getting started on the cycle, but I did release a video about the Snakes just last month. I believe it was August 31st, so really not that long ago, but it's about how the Snakes built up from nothing to World Series champs in 4 years, so check that out. And then the final thing I will leave you with, Jake, is shout out Victor Robles.
Shout out Victor Robles. I want it to work out, and it has been working out. There is, the devil on my other shoulder Mariners fans, ears off. Rooting for him to just be awful next year, excuse me. And it's just wait, the Mariners gave him a contract for a month of good games? But I don't know. Again, that's just the Mariners have brought out a dark side to me this year. And I like Victor Robles. So, all right, Bailey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's yuck a little football. We had some Bailey time. If you're here for the first time, well, hey, subscribe. B, for football season. Usually like to chew through the games, walk everyone through the weekend that was, how we got there, some highlights and some lowlights, most impressive win, maybe least impressive win, and anything else my trained eye saw along the way. So let's cron pot it, because we started off with two great ones. The NFL finds a way, and they opened up Kansas City and Baltimore. Kansas City wins at home in KC, 27-20. The Isaiah Likely game, some are calling it. Man, this is how the NFL wins. The only game, the only action in town. People so thirsty for NFL action. Mahomes, Lamar, and it comes down to a last play and a toe out of bounds on the back end zone line. It's called a touchdown initially. It looks like a touchdown initially. Let's go to OT, or are these Ravens on the road? The book tells you to go for 2. The book tells you it's coming off the scoreboard. Derrick Henry, touchdown out of the gate. First drive of the season. Everyone was wondering, it was one of the popular conversations. If King Henry's still King Henry playing with this Ravens offense, this is going to be fun. And we saw a little bit of that along the way. I think the questions in Ravensland, you lost an Arrowhead to the Chiefs by almost not losing. They don't care. It's week 1. Man, I'll tell you what, they try to get my guy Zay Flowers the ball a lot. They had 2 handoffs to him, 6 passes to him, couple more balls. Likely was the open man this game. It's going to be interesting. Mark Andrews, 2 catches for 14 yards. Does he get back in the mix? Is Mark Andrews old? Is likely the guy now? I think it's going to be whatever the Ravens are offered. They sneaky have weapons between Derrick Henry out of the backfield. I think likely and Andrews, if you try to go for one, I think they'll go for the other. These 2 teams are going to be good, and I think it's pretty funny. There's some parallels between this game to start the weekend and the Sunday Night Football, AFC, NFC. I mean, the image of Goff and Stafford walking out for the overtime felt NFL scripted. I'm not saying it was. These are going to be 2 of the best teams in the AFC this year. That's not too much of an update. Lamar Jackson, one of the best interviewees in all of sports right now. In the postgame, because the throw before the throw, he missed Zay Flowers in the back of the end zone. And he said, and not a lot of people would say this, he wasn't throwing for Zay Flowers. There was a receiver in front of him, and Lamar missed that. Chris Jones. I know it's kind of known in NFL circles that he's like the interior lineman you need to know, although he played a lot on the edges too. Now that Aaron Donald's retired, it's like Chris Jones's podium. He's the guy. So that's pretty cool for him. So we enjoy that on Thursday night. We get a thriller. Mahomes is back. Pacheco runs like a madman. They have more weapons on the outside. And where do we head? Sao Paulo, Brazil. Where the Phillies hosted Green Bay. Some fun fodder in my group chat that never got cleared up. But apparently green is one of the main gang signs in Brazil. So I don't know. There's a lot of jokes to be made about the delicious people of Philadelphia going down to Brazil, period, and the sweet people of Green Bay going down to Brazil, period. I don't think anything. We had no incidents, right?
I didn't hear any
Did
incidents,
Uncle
but
Roger
Twitter's
bury all
banned
that?
down there.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of jokes about people flying down in green.
Yeah, what was that? They were saying that like people were having their family members tweet out for them because they couldn't tweet while they were down there.
A lot of like the beat reporters were like texting their wife and giving them the password and like just tweet, just copy paste this, send tweet.
Doesn't get better than that. And beautiful. I know the joke's been made, and I think I made it, and I think I've stolen it from Scott Van Pelt. But Sal Paolantonio was in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The Philadelphia Beagles. They come out. Saquon Barkley, one of the biggest winners from the weekend. As I was crunching the numbers, as I did my 5th fantasy draft, I tell myself I need to get out of a league every year. I added one this year, thanks to the JM Captain Morgan Fantasy League. And there was that pivot point of the first round and the second round of the drafts where it was like A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, who else was down there at like the end of the first round of fantasy drafts? Puka was kind of in that range. I mean, even like Kyron was coming out of that range a little bit. It was a hodgepodge of like very good players, obviously, for the range they're being taken in. Who's Garrett Wilson? And it was kind of at that point of the draft, it's like, okay, do I wide receiver or running back? Am I going to double up on something? For me, the wide receivers, if you don't have one of the guys, it gets a little scary for me. And running backs are just so volatile that I was like, I need to get out of here with a wide receiver. Got A.J. Brown in a couple of leagues, and he played great. Looked like A.J. Brown. Where the math started mathing, and I think I said this, but the Eagles need to get back to running the ball. It's why they were dominant. The Eagles would, yes, I said this in the preview. They would hand it off to a different running back. They would have 3rd and 1, and they could do whatever they wanted from there. And you'd see them just wear teams out, and they did this to Green Bay at the end. Green Bay, by the end, was exhausted. We saw a ton of exhausted football teams because nobody uses training camp anymore to play football, which that's kind of funny. Saquon Barkley, one of the biggest winners of the weekend. He looked fantastic, and the math that I didn't finish mathing for you guys was they paid him a ton of money, and they needed to get back to running the ball. And they sure did. 2 rushing touchdowns, 24 for 109. Sick throw and catch. 2 catches for 23 and a touchdown. 3 touchdown day for Saquon out of the gate. A.J. Brown with 119. I guess another winner of the weekend, Jaden Reed for Green Bay. 4 catches and a touchdown. 1 end around and a touchdown for 33 yards. But it ends on a horrible note as Green Bay's trying to get in Hail Mary range. Jordan Love goes down. Sounds like 3 to 6 weeks, which, I don't know, man. Their backup is currently Malik Willis, who they traded for at the end of the season. He came in for the Hail Mary, didn't get it off. That's always a frustrating one. And Malik Willis, in the nicest way, has shown us some of the worst quarterback play we've seen on a field. So, hey, maybe LaFleur in Green Bay has something for him. They're wondering if they're going to make a transaction. If it's 3 weeks, okay. If it's 6 weeks, I mean, that's where football can happen fast. So Green Bay Packers bumped Kyle in the office. Not excited, Packers fan. But a pretty good start. Thursday, Friday. The NFL gives college Saturday. Very gentlemanly of them. Good college football weekend. Longhorns. Hook 'em. Took down Michigan. Notre Dame lost. Northern Illinois. What's that about, guys? Be better. Coach is handsome, though. Kingsbury effect. Which brings us to Sunday. We were streaming. Hopefully you joined us for the stream. We had a lot of fun. 1 o'clock slate. Let's chew through it fast. We get the update. No Russ for the Steelers. Okay. That's kind of what a lot of people were asking for either way. They're like, what's the best case with Russ? They put Justin Fields out there. And more so, they put the Pittsburgh defense out there. I think the other thing that needs to be stated, and again, we were kind of thrown off by the Thursday-Friday game, where we got good offense and good defense in KC Baltimore. Philly and Green Bay turned into kind of today's modern NFL, what you expect, 34-29 final. On Sunday, the average quarterback passing yards was $185. 185. Pretty ugly. Pretty sad. In today's NFL, that's supposed to be offense, and how's the defense even keep up? I think there's a couple things. I think no offense is practice in the preseason anymore. And offense, it's all about being cohesive, and you're basically got a bunch of dance partners out there. The defense never really knows what you're doing. That it was a defensive first NFL Sunday. And in Atlanta, Kirk and the boys, touchdown Kyle Pitts. Take that, fantasy football. But that was their only touchdown. Pittsburgh wins 18-0, 6 field goals. I mean, if that is not Mike Tomlin football. Some of the plays they were drawing up with Justin Fields was tough. Like it was like 3rd and 8, and they'd call a Justin Fields sweep right. Just kind of shows the state of that game. And it's also the Steelers and like Tomlin being smart. They played to not lose that game, and they didn't. And TJ Watt, man, when that guy is on the field, it's insane how much of the game he gets involved in. Ruined Kirk's debut. Heard some Kirk's done in the office. There was so much bad offense. It was his first game back off of a big injury. New team. We're going to wait on that one. Arizona and Buffalo. This was starting to kind of smell of upset. First game of the season. Cardinals with something to prove. Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the losers of the weekend.
Yeah.
Missant. This was a guy that in a lot of fantasy drafts became like a sexy end of the second round, start of the third. Not much on the scoreboard for him, but his Arizona Cardinals got out to an early lead. Josh Allen, he's without some of his, people are wondering who's going to get the rock. People assumed Dalton Kincaid was going to get the rock. I'm one of those people. Took him in 2 fantasy leagues, 1 catch for 11 yards. It's a really spread out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different receivers used by Josh Allen. I guess you could phrase that as a good thing. And what ended up happening after Arizona went up, I think they went up 10-0. Josh Allen took over, and it's what he can do, and it's what obviously makes him special. It was almost one of those things that you're wondering if it was like bad quarterback play. It felt like he wanted to take off too quickly. But when he's in the red zone, how speedy and physical and athletic he is. I mean, he had a play where he just jumped over a guy and just reached the ball into the end zone. He had 2 touchdowns passing, 2 touchdowns rushing. He's arguably, clickbait, let's get the social media. He's the best goal line running back in the league. He kind of is. And that being said, the Bills still gave the Cardinals back the ball, 6-point lead, and they couldn't get it done. Kyler looked okay.
Some moments for sure.
Some moments. He's electric little lightning bug. Again, their passing offense, Marvin Harrison, 1 catch for 4 yards. Greg Dortch was their leading receiver, catches and yardage-wise. That'll be interesting to follow as they go on. In Buffalo, good effort by the Cardinals. Bills end up 1-0. What else do we have here? Bears, Tennessee. This one was wild. Titans come out. And there was a lot of football people buying a little bit of Titan stock. Will Levis, they believe in what's going on down there. In the first half, it looked real. In Chicago, they were balling out. Will Levis with a couple pretty balls downfield. Tony Pollard breaks one from the grave. You're like, okay. And on the other side, Caleb Williams was looking bad. Just straight up bad. Missing a bunch of throws by a lot. He was looking like a rookie quarterback. And then the football gods kicked in. Blocked punt changed the whole momentum of the game. Jonathan Owens, you might know from Simone Biles fame, he scores a touchdown. And then the other side of Will Levis came out. He threw a backhanded, trying not to get sacked, throwaway ball, pick 6. They end up losing this game by a touchdown. Bears score 14th in the fourth to win it. Caleb, undefeated, not a pretty stat line, didn't look great, but it's why people were talking about the team around him. Only 93 yards from Caleb Williams. Welcome to the NFL. And like where I'm hyping Will Levis, he had a $127. Tough first week.
Some funky stat lines.
Fun highlights, though, from that game. Bengals, one of your losers from the weekend. The New England Patriots come into town. And Ramondre Stevenson runs for $120. The New England Patriots have them shut out for most of the game. Joe Burrow and the offense just not clicking. T. Higgins out of this game. And just a reminder, the Bengals are the biggest non-preseason team ever. What was it, 2 years ago when they were competing for the Super Bowl? They started off, I think, 1-3. They just don't take the preseason seriously. They don't believe in it. They're scared of injuries. And this was the biggest one, man. Opening weekend at home to a Patriots team. And Jacoby Brissett, who, credit to Jacoby Brissett, did enough. 121 through the air. 164 for Burrow. Was an ugly one. Congrats on the Patriots. And Gerard Mayo, first win. God, no Belichick? Crazy. I know it's known, but it's also, like, not known. Sneaky game that had an argument for best of the weekend, if not Rams-Detroit. Why did I say those teams differently? Rams-Lions. Houston-Indy. And this is one I liked coming in. AR5. Anthony Richardson flying up fantasy boards this offseason versus CJ Stroud and how good he was his rookie year. Man, some good back-and-forth action in this one. Anthony Richardson with a couple throws that you're like, whoa, that dude's different. I laughed. If any of you know how Zoe from We Got Ice enjoys sports, he likes the stars. He likes the highlight. That I was like, dude, I think he's going to love Anthony Richardson. First thing he walked in the stream yesterday, he's like, I love Anthony Richardson. He is a highlight. He runs like a tanker truck. He can throw the ball as far as anyone. It is funny. He finishes with a bad video game stat line, 9 for 19 for 212. Okay. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He also led the team in rushing. My guy, Alec Pierce, I always kind of liked. I like him because it feels like his arms are just bigger. He just collects balls. He had 3 catches for 125 and a touchdown in this game, but they were the losing side because Stroud and Nico Collins, people didn't know what to do with those Texans wideouts come fantasy drafts. Nico Collins, 6 for 117, while Stephon Diggs had 2 scores. Hello. And more so, Joe Mixon. Something to track with the Bengals. Like, I dismissed them, like they don't take preseason seriously, blah, blah, blah. Joe Mixon, he got the ball in that offense. He got it 30 times for 159 yesterday. They ended up wearing out the Colts in that one and putting that game on ice. Another note from yesterday, field goal kickers are too good. Like 55 and in is now close to automatic. It's unreal. My old NFL, 50 was like gasp. Like they're going to try a 50-yard field goal. Now it's like these guys have gotten better. I guess that's how sports works. I have to adjust to that. Another good one, the Miami Bowl. This one kept sneaking up to us on the live stream. We're like, what's going on in here? 17-7 at the half. Jaguars. Tyreek Hill with the casual arrest before the game. Everyone getting their notifications on that. Football is back. What's going on with your fantasy team? If you knew anything, you knew Tyreek Hill was going to score, and he did. 80 yards. 7 catches for 130 and a touchdown.
Yep.
That guy is in another land. Tua bringing up everyone's averages with 338 yards. Their offense is so funny to watch, man, with the fake pitches and just everything they do. It's so unorthodox that it is fun. It's like good for sports. It's almost like old school Rays when the Rays would outshift everyone and just try different stuff. Feels like the Dolphins do that, and they just need to get over their beat bad teams, lose to good teams stuff. Where you got, Beebs?
Jack Kirby. Yankees have activated Jason Dominguez.
Jason Martian sighting in the Bronx. Trevor Lawrence, of fantasy note, Tank Bigsby gets 12 carries. Speaking of from the grave, exciting guy last year. Really nothing happened. And our guy, Trevor Etienne, had a fumble in this game. So that's something to watch for fantasy people going forward. Jacksonville kind of in control the whole first half. They get shut out the second half and lose that game. Carolina, New Orleans, not really. Carolina looked as bad as they looked last year. Derek Carr had a good game. I unfortunately kind of will not read into it because Carolina is tough. It's tough. The biggest loser from the weekend, I think it's the New York Giants. I'm sorry, man. That was tough. That was tough to watch. This was a pick'em game in Vegas. DraftKings Sportsbook, I think it's Vikings -1. New York loses at home 28-6. Sam Darnold, I think, completed his first 12 passes for the Vikings. Shout out to my guy, tall, handsome coach, Kevin O'Connell. Justin Jefferson looked like Justin Jefferson. Aaron Jones. Adam Jones still retired, doing some content stuff for MLB Network.
Good talker.
Good follow. Good guy. Adam Jones, former Green Bay running back, in Minnesota now. We always love when someone stays in division. He looked fine, and the Giants just looked so lost offensively. That was brutal, man. Felt for the Talkin Giants guys. This was like the game. It was like, hey, we opened with Minnesota, Sam Darnold. We got this. To be fair to them, they have one of those next week at the Commanders, who didn't look too pretty, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Commanders are favored by like 5. I can get a DraftKings line on that. Let's see what happens with the Minnesota case study. Sam Darnold, people have believed in him for a while. Man, they go Niners, Texans. That's tough. And then Green Bay. Let's see who's playing for them. Man, their schedule is tough early on. Yikes. Niners, Texans, Packers. We'll see where they're at with Jordan Love. Jets. Let's see if they're the Jets or not. We'll find out tonight. Lions, Rams. And then it's Colts, Jags, Titans. So it eases up in the second half. But, yeah, Vikes are definitely going to be looking to stay around 500 the first half of the season. Schedule watch. You know I'm about that. Vegas and L.A. Los Angeles Chargers. This was obviously Harbaugh's first game. I am a full-blown Harbaugh believer. Everywhere he has gone, they've gotten better. And they're facing Las Vegas week 1. And the Las Vegas expectations are pretty low, although Gardner Minshew, 257 through the air. Watch out for that. One of my favorite players, unfortunately, he's fallen into the hurt NFL running back pool every year, J.K. Dobbins. He looked really good in this one, 135. They're going to run the ball. They have the Panthers next week. We're going to be talking about a 2-0 Chargers team. Not a doubt in my mind. Remind me to bet that. And then they'll face the Steelers. That's fun. I'm a Harbaugh believer. It wasn't the prettiest, but it was what he wants to do. He wants to win football games, play good defense, run the ball, put yourself in good positions to succeed. It'll be interesting to see the weapons on the outside if they are limited by that. Vegas, Antonio Pierce coaching. Remember, that was a fun story from the end of last year, but it feels like a year away from being a year away. My Denver Broncos. Hello. We're in the 4 p.m. slate. I guess Los Angeles was too. Denver gets out to a lead against your Seattle Seahawks. Bo Nix show. 42 pass attempts, 26 of them complete for 138. 2 interceptions. Yeah, 5 carries, 35 yards, and a touchdown. Gets in the end zone. I don't know, man. This is kind of what I would expect. I guess people kind of thought that Seattle would look just a little better. I mean, they did go up 26-13, so that last Broncos touchdown was kind of more eyewash than anything, especially after Seattle got off to a slow start. Kenneth Walker, 20 carries, 103, 1 touchdown. He looked good. DK Metcalf did not, but what I'll tell you is Pat Surtain, one of, if not the best corner in football. If you're playing fantasy, whoever the number 1 receiver is going against the Broncos, A, the Broncos are probably going to be losing, so your team might be running the ball. And B, Pat Surtain 2, PS2, he's that guy. He really is. Bo Nix, he's a rookie quarterback. Could have been worse. Saw a lot worse out there. Gino kept your receipts. Cleveland, Dallas. Dallas kind of rolled up on Cleveland. Deshaun Watson looks as bad as advertised these days. Jameis is their backup quarterback. They are going to have to make a decision on that sooner than later because Deshaun ain't it, man. We were laughing. Drop back, take 2 steps right, scramble left, throw it out of bounds. Tough to watch. Let's find out how good Dallas is. None of their numbers are really impressive because Cleveland was kind of so bad, and they had a nice punt return. We like the kickoff return for now. I didn't like it at first. It looks weird with that just group of guys lining up outside the 20-yard line.
I don't need them to highlight the landing zone.
Highlighting the landing zone, maybe just a line or something like that. We're all learning, but we got some explosive returns, so the goal is to still have that.
It was supposed to be like the idea behind it, the first 2 games of the season, the Thursday, Friday games, we just didn't see one.
Yeah, the Thursday, Fridays were a little disappointing that it was like, okay, this kind of stinks.
Is this anything?
This is why you get more of a sample size. So that was fun. Cleveland, kind of big, bad, and worried. I got excited about the rookies at some point. I did place a bet on Washington to win, and that was dumb. Because Baker bringing the numbers up with 289 through the air. Godwin looked great. Mike Evans looked great. And I've completely flipped my daydream. Baker had 4 touchdowns. Wow. Okay, it is the Washington football team. Here's what I think Baker Mayfield can do. I think Baker Mayfield can get the ball to talented players. And I think Mike Evans still is. Everyone's just waiting for it to happen when he's not. He had 2 touchdowns, made it look easy. Chris Godwin, 8 for 83 and a touchdown. We like that. Rashad White had a pretty big game receiving, not as much rushing. Someone to watch for them, Jalen McMillan. He only had 1 catch. It was for a touchdown, so maybe I'm too excited. But Jalen McMillan was one of the wide receivers out of Washington last year, that they were just nasty. All 3 of them were studs. And finding out that he's going to be the third, which he was kind of used to being a third in Washington, I don't know. I kind of really like that fit for him, that everyone was getting excited for the Falcons preseason this year. Like, look at the weapons and all that. Bucks might just have like a cozy little Buccaneers. Things might not be too exciting, but we might be 10-7, and that might win that division every year. Let's see what happens with Jaden Daniels. 16 carries, 88 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. There's some fantasy things of note for you. For a rookie quarterback, he did fine. Austin Eckler got hit hard once. Commanders, Giants next week. Buckle up. Get ready for that bad boy. And then the nightcap, and this is where the NFL wins. And I don't know, man, something about Rams-Lions had another playoff game feel to it. I was going to say NFC Championship this time, but a lot of stuff has to go right for that. The Lions and Dan Campbell are awesome. I kind of forgot. Everyone kind of flipped on them and went like, hey, it's tougher to be the hunted than the hunter. They don't care, dude. Dan Campbell's awesome. His out of halftime interview, him and Lamar Jackson, get them a podcast. I just want to listen to those 2 talk all day. His intensity is electric. And dude, this was a McVay and Stafford masterclass. They were getting beat by a better team on the road, and they just did the classic NFL survive. Let's keep ourselves in position that when we get a little momentum and we can attack, we will attack. And they did. It was looking like they were going to win that game. Detroit does enough to keep it and bring it to overtime. They win the coin toss. They go down and score. Still doesn't feel right. Still doesn't feel like sports. It's an NFL game. Everyone was exhausted. Whoever won that coin toss was going to win. So that feels bad. That doesn't feel like how football's supposed to go down. Tough Stafford red zone pick after not having any last year. That was kind of crazy. Trevor Plouffe with the theory that the unis and end zone and matching surroundings were all the same blue and that should be illegal. I'm interested because that's exactly what I saw in the replay. I couldn't believe Trev brought it up organically. Gonna have to get some rules on that. I think fantasy purposes, David Montgomery. I know Jahmyr Gibbs was a high pick, and he's nasty, but David Montgomery runs mean, and Dan Campbell and the Lions like that, and they don't care about your fantasy team. I will say, a guy that ended up on 2 of my teams had a big night, Jameson Williams. He becomes the pure number 2 in Detroit. He had a full, healthy offseason. It was his first one. He is a burner, unlike a lot of guys are truly burners in this league. He got wide open. It was a pass interference. The corner tried to tackle him, and he couldn't, and he still got there. The way Detroit runs the ball and the play action opportunities they're going to have, and Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra got locked down a little bit, something to track this year. But I think Jameson Williams is due to have a big fantasy year. He got off to a good start, which leads us to tonight. The San Francisco Giants and the New York Jets. I placed a little bet in San Francisco. I'll just be honest. The Jets are the Jets until they're not the Jets, and maybe they're not. Look at what the New York Mets are doing. Mets are battling for the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers hasn't played in a year. Aaron Rodgers is old. All the offense this weekend struggled. And Aaron Rodgers is in San Francisco going against one of the best defenses in the league. So it's not even shots fired. It's just like look at the data points and information around you that not a lot of clean offense happened this weekend. That Rodgers, being older, not having played a lot with this team, I think it's pretty easy to punch in that math that they could have a tough night. I hope they don't. I hope we have a great game. That's all I'm rooting for. and a couple Brock Purdy, Debo fantasy points. Always, you guys, Debo's my favorite player. Debo's my favorite player? Is that cool to say? Do I believe in that?
You've been kind of on that.
Debo's kind of my favorite player. The things you forget. I guess player-wise, other things I missed from this weekend. Cooper Kupp on the way through, he had a big game. Puka Nacua got hurt. Cooper Kupp had a sick sideline catch that's just like, wow. That dude is wired differently than you and I. Achane looks like a freak for Miami. Another jitterbug that's all over. Kamara had a good game. I think that's kind of everything I want to get off my chest. I don't know, Jim. Beebs?
Prior to tonight's Yankees game, they made the following roster moves. Recalled Jason Dominguez from AAA. Returned John Birdie from rehab assignment. Designated Anthony Mishevitz for assignment. And placed DJ LeMahieu on the 10-day IL with right hip impingement.
Get that hip feeling better, DJ.
I want you to feel right.
Let's feel right. Get healthy. All right, Beebs, tell them about Uncle Dan.
Lake and Jake is a production of Dan Patrick Productions, John Boy Media, and Workhouse Media.